a different sort of YouTube today, in that it's going to be a bit of an interview between myself and Rosemary, who is, Rosemary, cover your ears, a truly remarkable woman. Truly remarkable. Now take it, Rosemary, take it. And as we get a little bit more mature, shall we say that word, we've got more kind of, hopefully more wisdom to share. So I'm going to be asking Rosemary just some stuff about her life, and perhaps some wisdom which she can give, which we can think about. So Rosemary, I'm going to start with a really rude question. I hope that's all right. Can I ask how old you are?
Yeah, I'll be 95 in June.
95 in June.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing was, when I asked you about this, you said, well, I love trying new things, or I'll give it a go. And at nearly 95, you're willing to do that. Would you be right just giving a brief kind of life history of yourself, just a little bit?
Oh, my goodness. Well, this is supposed to be a short interview. How do you get 95 years?
I don't know how you're going to do it.
Okay. Well, I was born in a village in Kent, and went to a local school, an uneventful childhood until the war came, which we're going to talk about in a minute, I think. It wasn't a Christian household. And in fact, my uncle, my mother's brother, became a Christian, and he kept writing letters to my mum. And my mum would say, oh, poor Willie, he's got religion. I grew up thinking that religion was a sort of illness, a disease, and that Christians were weird people, you know. So it wasn't until I went to a house party in August 1943, run by a guy called Reverend Roger de Pemberton, who later founded the Abbey. And this was just an ordinary holiday house party, and anybody could go. And I could talk, I don't have to go to all that Christian stuff. But in fact, I did go, and I became a Christian there because I realized that, you know, these Christians had got something that I hadn't got, and they were really, you know, great people. So that's when I became a Christian. And the following year, I started nursing because I just felt that's what God wanted me to do. So that's that bit in a nutshell.
Brilliant. When we were speaking, or you emailed me recently saying that this coronavirus lockdown has brought back all the memories of World War II.
Yes.
Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Okay, well, yeah, okay. So the first thing that happened was we didn't go to school. The schools didn't open. And living in Kent, normally the people came down from London to pick the hops, and they didn't come down. So we all had to go hop picking. And I had half a bin with my friend Margaret, and we had a great time, and we earned our first lot of money. And then eventually the school did open, but we had to share it with a school evacuated from London. So we only went part-time, and we had to go by train every day. Living in Staplehurst was on the main Dover to London line. So came Dunkirk, and the train simply didn't run. And we would stand on the platform waiting for our train and just see these trainloads of exhausted, dirty. Oh, it was awful seeing these trainloads of men travelling up to London from Dunkirk. Really, really, I'll never forget it. So then the next thing, of course, that happened was the Battle of Britain. And we were right in the middle of it. And we used to stand in the chairs in the street cheering our boys. And then I've got a younger brother. He was 3 years younger than me. And we used to get on our bikes and we'd cycle around and pick it. And my brother had an arsenal of aeroplane parts and bullets and stuff.
Nazi memorabilia.
So, then the other next memory was doodlebugs, which were really, really scary. And one dropped. My mother's best friend was the baker's wife, Mrs. Hodges. Everybody was Mrs. whatever. And the baker, her husband, Mr. Hodges, was the bakery was destroyed, and he was quite severely wounded, and their house was damaged because it was right next to it. And so Mrs. Hodges and her youngest son came to live with my parents, so I couldn't go home for months. I'd started nursing by then.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't go home. But they were terrifying because you'd hear them and they'd stop and you knew you had to dive under a table or somewhere. I mean, it wouldn't have done you much good, really, but that's what you did. And of course, the other thing was the rationing. Everything was rationed.
And rationed for quite a lot after World War II, wasn't it?
It went on till food rationing went on till about 1953. We were married, and food was still rationed.
Right. Yeah. So what foods were really kind of, because at the moment we're struggling with flour and eggs.
Well, my mother, we kept eggs, so we were all at home. We were always all right. And being a nurse, they had to feed the nurses well. Yeah. But it was really difficult for lots of people. The worst thing was after the war when bread was rationed, and that was probably the most difficult time for people.
Yeah.
But clothes, petrol, coal, fuel, I mean, when we were married, we had our first flat and we had our coal ration. And then when we moved to another flat, we had got a motorbike and sidecar, and we had to move our coal ration in the sidecar because you didn't get another ration. Well, you probably won't be using any of that because it's far too much anyway.
Coming out of like World War II and rationing, how did it change afterwards? Because I think a lot of us are thinking, after coronavirus, will we go back to how things were, or will it change us?
No, nothing was ever the same. First of all, women had worked, and they complete change there. And so there was quite a revolution in that women were working. But even, it took a long time because I went back to work as a health visitor in 1963. And I was the only person in our road of 30 houses, the only woman to work, the first one. And some of my friends really didn't approve. So it took a long time for women to be able to work, and it wasn't the norm at all. The other things that gradually changed, people were really, really tired, and the country was terribly run down. And I mean, simple little things like the petrol was very poor quality. And so when we had this motorbike, we went on holiday down to Cornwall, but the petrol wasn't strong enough to go up hills. So I had to walk up all the hills.
Wow. Because it was going to water down.
And to start it, my husband would have to do a run and leap on the motorbike.
Brilliant.
And that went on for a long time, this poor quality petrol.
Wow. So just kind of watered down petrol almost, just wasn't very effective.
I don't know what it was. It hadn't got enough octane, I think.
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah, that sounds much more scientific than what I'm saying. I don't suppose you can just add water to it.
But everybody was really tired, and lots of marriages were breaking up. It wasn't a good time. For me, it was good because I married in 1950, and of course, when you're first married, you're very happy, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh, we'll leave that bit there, Rosemary. We'll leave that bit there. So after the war, you're then working in the RUH?
Oh no, we lived.
Got that wrong.
We didn't move to Bath till 1990.
Oh,
so we lived in Essex. We lived in Essex always.
Tell us about that experience.
Girl. I was born in Kent, but after we married,
I can't hear the accent. Tell us about something, because you had some pretty tough experiences there.
Where?
When you were at the hospital in Essex, some challenges.
Oh, well, yes. Yeah, I was very, very, well, this is coming on to something else, but I was really fortunate on my first ward. I had the most wonderful ward sister and staff nurse, and they actually made me a nurse, you know. I mean, I would have always been a good nurse because I like people, but they made me I mean, I'll just tell you this because you won't want to use it, but it will give you a picture. The junior nurse, you called junior pro then, her responsibility was doing bottles and bedpans, and there were all these, it was a men's surgical ward, and there were all these old boys who'd got prostate trouble. And so in those days, they used to stick a catheter into the abdomen, and it drained into a bottle, and you had to do the intake and output measurements, and that was a junior pro's responsibility. Anyway, I had the day off, and I came back the next day, and Sister Clary called me into her office, and she said, "Nurse, look at these intake and output charts. They haven't been kept." And she said, "I know you had a day off, but the importance of this is that if the intake and output doesn't match, the patient might get uremia. How would you feel if your father was that patient and got uremia?" Wow, God, like a body blow. But I've never forgotten to this day. And whenever a patient asked me for anything, I thought, and I'd be irritated, you know, somebody wanted a bedpan, I was doing something else.
Yeah.
But I would get them a bedpan because if that was my father or my mother.
Yeah.
And then that was the difference.
So it's almost like kind of loving your neighbour, just whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I probably won't edit that out. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you're happy, I can leave that in.
I was going to talk about it later because I will talk about it later because anyway.
Yeah.
When you asked me what advice.
Yeah. Well, I was going to come to that in a minute. It's almost like what advice would you give to your younger self, but also maybe a separate question. What advice would you give to teenagers, like in Toast and Rendezvous now?
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry, I've lost a bit.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Well, I've really been very blessed in my life that I've had some amazing people who gave me, really encouraged me, like Sister Clary, and there were several other people in my life. And their encouragement helped me to develop my potential because I wasn't a very confident person, really. And they an encouragement is so important.
Yeah.
And the other thing is to be positive. And every day, every evening, I review the day and I find 3 things to thank God for. And it's not easy sometimes, but it works and it keeps you positive.
Yeah. So, being thankful.
The other thing you didn't ask me about, about my life with Jesus.
Go for it. That's my next question. You're ahead of the game. Go for it.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm asking the question.
No, yeah. I like it. It means I can sit and listen.
Well, I feel that Jesus' life shows us what God is like, and God is love. And Jesus gave us 2 commandments: to love the Lord our God and to love our neighbour as ourselves. And every morning I ask God to help me to see others with Jesus' eyes, to serve Jesus with Jesus' hands, and to love others with Jesus' heart. And that's, do we want me to say that again? Because I sort of rather stumbled over it.
No, I think it was said beautifully. It was said from my heart, Rosemary.
The other thing was about accepting, about, what I'm learning from this lockdown.
Yeah, go for it. What?
Yeah, well, I've had, well, over the last, I've had some illness, and I've had to learn to accept that there will be days when I can't do much, and I have to learn to accept help, and that's not been easy. But I like facing new challenges, and I've learned how to use Zoom via Zoom for Dummies.
Brilliant.
And to record my own voice, thanks to Google. And yeah, when I was 90, I had my ears pierced for the first time. And this is on a lighter thing. Yeah, 90. I'd always wanted it, and I was terrified. I'd just got an absolute thing about it. And anyway, that was another story. But the other thing is, I'll tell you, I mean, you won't put this in, but I must tell you about the TED Challenge. So there's a TED Challenge when you look around you and think of something you've always wanted to do, and for 30 days you do it for sort of 5 to 10 minutes every day.
Yeah.
And I went when I was at school. Miss Spencer, our art teacher, was only interested in the girls who were naturally good. So the rest of us can't paint, can't draw, you know. All my life, I wanted to paint and draw, and I thought, can't do it. So, you know, you grow, it's awful, isn't it? How these things.
Yeah.
And then, so I thought, okay, TED Challenge, I'm going to learn to paint. And so I looked online, and I found this guy called Frank Clark. And his mantra is that painting is fun, anyone can do it. And I can paint and I can draw, sort of. I mean, I'll never be a Picasso. I'll never be good, but I can do it. And
let me leave that in as well. That's really good, Rosemary. If you're happy to.
Yeah, if you have to, I don't mind what you put in. Yeah. If you don't have a go at something, for goodness sake, what's life all about?
Yeah. Well, I just loved your email response yesterday when you said, my first reaction was no to an interview, but I'm going to do a new thing. and we're on Zoom. Can I just say
great.
Thank you so much. Thank you first of all for all the advice for the young people. And just the encouragement and all the stuff you do in the background. You haven't really mentioned it, but you've been quite involved in this kind of children's church work a lot before, I know.
Oh, 10 years I was the receptionist. We used to have a receptionist then. Yeah. So I used to greet everybody, and anybody new, sort them out. Oh, because you were doing it then, weren't you?
Part of it, yeah. part of the woodwork now.
But the other thing, I don't expect you realise this, but if there were kids who were really playing up, they used to bring them out to the kitchen where I was, and I'd entertain these kids. Or if they were really upset, I'd have to take them back up to church. That was another job.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think it was quite nice, but you had to lock up in those days. I had to stay and lock up, and that was awful because people.
Because you're a people person.
Yeah, I know, but people would hang around forever, and I got lunch to cook.
turn the lights off. That's what I do. Just turn the lights off. I might edit that bit out. I might not actually.
Well, I don't. I mean, you've only got a few minutes because they don't want a long talk.
Well, I might leave most of it in, but can I just say thank you so much, and for all your encouragement and prayers. It's really appreciated.